Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. It's always a pleasure and a privilege when we get together and hang out together. And hi, how you doing? It's good to see you all. Oh my goodness, what a long day! I don't know about the rest of you, but this day of the week is an action-packed day for this guy. I got to tell you, it is a packed day. And it is a day filled with a lot of activity, fun stuff, great conversation we had with Apostle Moshe today. And wow, are we ever grateful for that guy? All right. And so thank you for those of you that share those discussions. They are always a giant beraka. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate those conversations and those times together at the gates. Amen. And also grateful for those of you that are sharing our Shabbat messages. It's always a privilege to encourage the believers that are out there in Messiah. And remember that we are a people of shalom, people of peace. We don't we're not warmongers, right? We're not the people looking to create conflicts out there in the world and mess with everyone. Like, so, let's remember that, because there's plenty of people out there that are creating conflict and looking for ways to stoke up division and stoke up one side versus the other. And again, we always attribute this back, don't we, guys? We attribute that back to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And those who are try to wield that and say, I have it right or wrong, and you're wrong and I'm right, and I'm good and you're evil. Whenever you see that dichotomy starting to be used, you already know that what's at work, and you know that war's at work, right? And you know that what's likely to result is destruction. And so this is why it's so important for us to be a people that are kind-hearted, gentle-hearted, thoughtful, considerate of one another, and remembering that but for the grace of our great Father in heaven, where would we be? In the same ditch as that person right there, in the same ditch, in the same place. And so remembering that, we become gracious, we become kind, we become tender-hearted one toward another. And if there's one thing that I hope we do each week is help us, remind us to be tenderhearted one toward another, and always be patient. People surprise you, by the way. They have growth spurts, and so, you ever notice that they do have growth spurts? So sometimes somebody is not growing at all, and you're like, "Oh, I've already tried to talk to that person." Oh, have you ever had one of those? I tried to talk to them, and nothing happened. Then all of a sudden, growth spurt. All right. Great growth spurt. Shalom, every one of you. And we do put your comments up on the screen here. Let me make sure they're nice and big and wide. There we go. So you can join in on the conversation, because this is what it is. We get together. Look, guys, what we do is we get together weekly because, first of all, I don't know about the rest of you, but doing this every day would not work for me. Okay. No way. And I used to be one of those people that got updates all the time. So if you're one of those folks, ooh, I feel you. I really, really feel you. And then there were those folks that when I would talk to them, I would say, "Have you heard about this or that?" And they would say, "Man, I disconnected from the news a long time ago. I don't listen to any of it." And I kind of understood that, except I always felt like, well, that's a little far. Like now you've gone too far. You know what I mean? Now you've gone off to the where you're off grid completely. And I don't think that's very healthy either. And so we found this happy medium of the weekly pace, which a lot of you have positively affirmed to be a good pace. So thank you for that. I think it is a good pace. It's about as often as I can handle it. so, so thank you for those of you that are pacing along with us. Something we like to say around here is that we want to be informed without being overwhelmed. And we do have this wonderful website called remnantwatch.com, where we track all the stories that we are watching and keeping an eye on, and so on. So on the top here, always find this banner. It'll always take you to the latest broadcast on YouTube, so you can grab a hold of that if you're so inclined. Thousands of you just bookmarked it and come by just for the links, and that's fantastic. Of course, there's a search bar right here to make that nice and handy for you to search previous stories. And we still continue to provide these survival guides because, well, I have yet to come up with a week where I didn't feel like that was necessary. So it's just part of what we've noticed, right? Over the course of, my goodness, how long, guys? This has got to be 2-3 years now that we've been saying, That's another unprecedented. What? What? And so the more we see that, the more we know that our job, of course, as watchmen, to alert you to the dangers that are out there, and also do our best as believers, right? Do our best to help, to assist, to encourage, to strengthen, because everybody's got battles, everybody's got them. We all have them, but we can be a blessing. And the more you are to someone else, the more your own light will shine greater. So that's a good thing. Amen. And amen. And on that note, let's get into the news. And tonight's top story, ooh, furious Maduro. Maduro's not happy. Yes, he's an unhappy camper. And the reason why is because, well, the United States seized one of his tankers. And you knew this was going to happen. Quit looking surprised. You all, you all are pretty sharp. So who was out there? No, seriously, I was almost laughing as I was doing this story. Like, let's see a show of hands of how many people thought this was going to get reduced to oil and how quick would that happen? And there's a whole lot of people right now going, see, I told you. I told you it was about oil. I told you it was about oil. Well, you might not be wrong. Seething tyrant, raging Maduro vows to break America's teeth after the U.S. seizes Venezuelan ship as Trump shrugs. I assume we keep the oil. Almost $70 million of oil was on board the tanker, part of a global shadow fleet that also services Russia and Iran. Of course, he was very upset about that and went out in public and, made a lot of threats. And this is part of the political theater that is going on back and forth. And I am starting to wonder if that wasn't a bribe paid. It's just weird how these things happen. So, don't bomb us. We'll give you this tanker. I don't know, man, but I'm open to all theories right now. Paul, what do you got? David, what are you thinking? Patty, come on, somebody help me out because this looks so weird. Okay, they've got the military there, and then he grabs the tanker, and of course, these guys love to pontificate against the United States, and when they do so, they become themselves popular in their own countries and so forth. So you kind of got to wonder about some of this thing, I tell you, and hopefully that is about as bad as it gets because we certainly don't want to see. I know, right? David's like, you're probably right. I don't know, David. I'm starting to get super suspicious over this whole thing. And I'm certainly hoping it is theatrics because we certainly don't want to see big guns being, trained on either side, right? So that wouldn't be good. And don't anybody wish for conflict. That's not a good thing to wish for. And we certainly don't want to see it. We're certainly seeing it still in the Middle East. So much for a ceasefire, guys. How many of you are going, yeah, I didn't buy it either? I didn't either, but we certainly hope, right? We're always hopeful when there's talks of peace. We're like, oh, maybe now finally you'll all get tired of killing each other. And unfortunately, not quite the case, as Hamas is confirming the killing of a senior commander in Israeli attack in Gaza. So again, so much for a ceasefire. Hamas's Gaza chief, Galil al-Hayya, says Saeed killed in an Israeli attack that violated the ceasefire. So the ceasefire you can't say you have a ceasefire if you continue to do this. So Hamas has confirmed the killing of senior commander Raed Saad in an Israeli attack in Gaza, and the highest profile assassination of a senior figure in a Palestinian group since the October ceasefire. So it had been, I guess, holding to a certain degree. But Israel's military said it killed Saad in an attack on Saturday near Gaza City. At least 25 people were also wounded in this ceasefire attack. I don't know quite how you justify that. So how do you say out of the same mouth ceasefire and we killed? How do you do that? Serious problems going on here, folks. And there's only so much management of the news you can do when you're doing these kinds of things. And so this is really coming to a head, I think, in a very bad way. But I hopefully, again, our hope really, truly is that all of humanity grows such a absolute disdain for war as a concept, as a mechanism for resolving dispute, and gets to the end of it, just like we usually get to the end of it as teenagers, and finally you quit allowing it. Parents usually step in and go, okay, enough, tough guy, Mr. Tough Guy. You don't win because you're tough. That doesn't make you right. And so we teach our children that. And then what do? We go build armies have sophisticated militaries to basically do the same thing. I mean, come on. And I know a lot of you see the same thing. You're going, this is ridiculous. You guys are acting like children, and we're ashamed of you. I mean, is that not right? Have we not sat back? And I bet it's on all sides. You know that? I bet you if you went to the elderly in every one of these countries, they would all want to take those leaders by the ear and go, listen to me. What we need is cheaper bread. We don't need more guns. So anyway, I digress because again, hopefully they start to figure out that peace is what people want. They don't want more assassinations, okay? And now finally maybe Ukraine is getting the message. Okay. So I mean, exactly. David says, I'm shaking my head so much I feel like a bobblehead. And Ukraine, as peace talks is progressing. So at least that's good. They should progress. They really can't win this war. Russia's open to a EU membership as long as the US officials are saying that, rather, that they're near an agreement with Ukraine to end the war with Russia. And any deal would need final approval from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who had taken a hard line and demanded territory in return for peace. So he's very upset about, obviously, what has transpired in this conflict, and rightfully so. There's a lot of lives lost. This is the reason why war is so bad, and it never usually ends well. No matter who wins or so-called wins, there's no such thing as a winner of a war. There's just a mitigation of damages. And so that's hopefully coming to an end in Eastern Europe. Those of you that are in that part of the world, we pray, and we've been praying for a reprieve for you in that part of the world. So very good news, guys, right? We're all happy to hear that, hey, Ukraine might be coming off the every week list of, oh my goodness, would they blow up this time, right? So hopefully we see some of that go down. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean it's going to go on all over the earth, because already they're talking about other places. And so now they're talking about conflict as a result of the United States interfering with the oil that's flowing out of Venezuela. And then there's some postulating that China will be extremely upset by this U.S. blockade, which, of course, bodes very poorly for the United States, because China is a formidable enemy. And, of course, the seizure of Venezuelan oil tankers was an extremely shocking move by the Trump administration. It was followed by the seizure. Will it be followed by the seizure of more tankers? So now you've kind of put this idea in the minds of the entire industry and the entire ecosystem, if you will. And this, of course, is causing tremors all across the entire Earth, because, again, a part of the way in which Earth works is with an understanding, sort of a gentleman's agreement, that commerce will continue to flow, that no matter what conflicts you have, we still keep certain things just keep flowing. And this has been the case, really, guys, through multiple world wars, by the way. I mean, you even saw American companies supplying Germans. Don't ask me how they figured that one out. They had to pass a law to stop it. That's how often it was happening. They literally had to pass a Trading with the Enemies Act to stop companies from selling to the people that were shooting at American soldiers. I kid you not. So you just can't understand the theatrics that we have all endured for well over 100 years as we're watching these things unfold. And yet, nevertheless, this is our world, so we have to be aware of it. And you've got to be in it, even though you may figure it out and say, oh, it's just this and that. Yeah, well, it still affects your life. Okay, so yep, the U.S. did, in fact, seize a tanker off the coast of Venezuela, Trump is saying. And of course, they did own up to stopping that tanker. And I think what my suspicion is this, and I want your thoughts on this, guys. Because as I saw the story, one of the things I thought was, okay, you're stopping a tanker, and the obvious move that everybody's going to say, and everybody's going to snicker and go, see, they're coming for the oil, right? Well, wouldn't you think that they would know that too, right? So here's the thing. What are they really looking for? I don't know. Are they looking for a drug? Is it really a drug interdiction, and was it under the cover of oil, right? Are they looking for other things? A tanker that's really something else, right? So we don't really know what we're watching here. We're just hearing a news story about a tanker being stopped. I promise you there's more to this than meets the eye, because there's other tankers that were around there, and they only stopped that one. So There is more to this than just, oh, you took our oil, you're coming to get our oil, which was like the low hanging fruit. But I want your thoughts, guys, because this was really clever and interesting, and I don't think this story is over. But definitely more to this than meets the eye. Because again, if it were the only tanker, been one thing. There's a whole bunch of other tankers, and they only stopped that one. So there must be, in my opinion, something's fishy going on here. Fishy. I smell the fish. Well, I'm Peter. I'm a fisherman. I smell the fish. I know fish when I smell it. Okay, that's fish. All right. Now, China is using some cyber weapons, and this is something we did know that we would be facing more of. And of course, cyber weapons continue to create what they're calling societal havoc and chaos. And of course, they're blaming China for this. Do we know where these things really come from? No. And that's what's dangerous about blaming, is unless you can actually trace it to a computer and know for a fact it came from there. It's really easy to spoof that. It's really easy for these high-tech guys to do that. Trust me, I know. And so it's really difficult for us to believe when they say these are the people doing it, because they have to be able to trace that. And so chaos is across a lot of countries, not just the United States. There's a lot of countries that are being affected by cyber hacking right now. China is trying to use, according to this report, according to the Jerusalem Post. Of course, again, China has been putting a lot of pressure on Israel, so we have to consider the source. But nevertheless, this is what's being reported, and it's in a proposition of the U.S. and the West for societal havoc and chaos in civilian infrastructure in the event of a conflict. And so, and this may very well be true that they have these abilities to wreak havoc inside of systems. But I would suggest that so do the other countries as well. So it's not just one country or another. If you guys remember, Vault 7 tools were put in the public. That meant every secret service or every, intelligence service across the world were updated on that day. If you guys may have forgot about, you guys forget about that? Did you forget the WikiLeaks? Did you forget that? Oh, I didn't. I don't forget that. Okay. Well, Vault 7, they released all the tools. You remember that? And those give them the ability to hack almost any system. So, we're probably going to see more and more hacking stories for a while until they upgrade. And America is low on upgrade capability right now. And so this is becoming more and more of a story. And there's going to become more and more things going on down at, I think Latin America is heating up for a reason. I think we're about to see more conflict down there, unfortunately. And there's now we're seeing reports of, quote, shockwaves through America, as he hints at two more nations that he is setting his sights for a Venezuela-style crackdown. He's talking about, of course, Mexico, okay, which is already doing some serious interventions and interdictions against the cartels. And the president said in an interview tape this week that he would consider using military force on two U.S. allies in Latin America, Mexico and Colombia, both to assist in dealing with insurgency within the country. So not attacking the countries themselves, but using military force within those countries in support of efforts to remove militarized cartel organizations. So this is becoming quite serious and dangerous for everybody in Mexico, as well as Colombia now and Venezuela. So it's becoming very dangerous because, again, it's one thing when we've maintained status quo. Now we're seeing kinetic action. That means things blow up. That means people get shot. Things happen. So a time to be very sober, a time to be very vigilant, right? We were told in the scripture that we would see times of wars and rumors of wars. And these things come in cycles or rhythms in earth. And we are moving through another one of those rhythms, time periods, high conflict. Weak men create a lot of war. So we're in a bad spot. Okay, we're in a bad spot, and the weak men create hard times. But the hard times create strong men, and usually that pulls you out the other side. So these cycles go on, guys. This is basic anthropology 101. You look back on history, everything follows cycles. If you just keep following, you'll see the cycles. And as you see them, you start realizing, wow, here we go again. Okay, here we go again. So some of this is almost predictable. And that's why we have to stay sober and vigilant no matter what we're seeing. And, now conflict with Ukraine is going down, but is it possible that we might be seeing a stoke up of conflict with China? Well, we just saw, of course, the conflict that is going on in the Gulf of America and dealing with Venezuela. Excuse me. Would that now translate into conflict with China? Could, because again, China is allied with a lot of countries down in our southern hemisphere, but then also it has the issue of Taiwan. And according to this report, China would destroy. Listen to this, and this is a very serious threat and a very serious reality. And this is something that those in the military science field and those in military planning know very well, that China has developed capabilities that are formidable against the United States. And China, in fact, could destroy U.S. military in fight over Taiwan. A top secret document is warning Beijing's hypersonic missiles could sink U.S. aircraft carriers within minutes. These are an old world technology. Aircraft carriers are an old world technology, and we are in a different age, folks. And hypersonic missiles cannot be stopped. So whatever they are shot at usually gets blown up. Okay, and again, we live in this world where we're sort of pretend away. We pretend everything is status quo, but it's not. And if we actually went to war, it would not be pretty. It would be over quick. The United States is not the monster that it likes to pretend it is, and our hope is that cooler heads would prevail, and we would not look for that kind of thing, but instead use our strengths collectively as nations to eradicate those that would cause war and bring conflict. That's where we need to put our strength together as nations, is look for ways to remove those who bring war and defend those who are walking in shalom, walking in peace. And speaking of peace, boy, they're going to need that over in the western part of the United States or over the Pacific, because there's an atmospheric river. Did you guys hear about this? Yeah. They're calling it the Godzilla Atmospheric River. The Gaiju. Okay. It's targeting Seattle area with major flooding and landslide threats. So apparently, Washington State really getting hit. Western Washington residents have had to deal with the weekend to prepare for what the forecasters are calling one of the strongest atmospheric river storms in years. And it's called a Godzilla Atmospheric River. So if you're up in that part of the world, well, just know that this ain't looking good. And just be aware that it's going to be coming down upon you guys. So this, of course, already manifested this past weekend. And I do believe we're going to be continuing to see more and more strange and more, catastrophic weather over the Northwest. It continues to draw a lot of attention, and odd things happening there, like odd patterns emerging there. It's really got me I'm like, whoa, the Northwest is looking shaky. Here we have another report right here. Catastrophic Pacific Northwest floods have 100,000 facing evacuation. Flooding levels we're looking at potentially historic nature, Governor Bob Ferguson said on Thursday, urging people to listen to officials and advice. And it is bad. Okay, so this is unprecedented. Again, folks, we get to say unprecedented. Never happened before. All right, a state of emergency is going on continuously. And again, just confirming why you never know when you may suddenly have to evacuate. Please be prepared for that. At least have had a moment to think about it and say, wow, this could happen. The situation is extremely unpredictable, according to the governor. And the flooding levels are particularly potentially historic in nature. So again, here we go, folks, with another situation that is unprecedented, never seen before. Whoops. Have we stepped into an unprecedented time? One might say so. What do you think? Okay. What do you think? You think we've stepped into an unprecedented time? There's some that are preparing yet for more conflict, though. And this really disappoints me. When we saw the news that Ukraine was finally moving towards settling peace, That was our hope. We would see Europe calm down. Nope. Look at these headlines. War generation. Look at this. I can't believe I'm even seeing this, but it's what's out there. We must prepare for scale of war our grandparents endured. NATO chief chillingly warns as he reveals Putin's next target. And so again, warning about stuff that we are not even sure is real, but warning as if we've got to be prepared to live like this. Fight, fight, fight. Death, death. Oh no, kill, shoot. Look at this propaganda. Okay. And so again, folks, we still have a lot of work to do to change the thinking of the world. You are the light of the world, right? You are the light of the world, my friends. And we've got to change this thinking. We've got to come up against it and be like, hey, can we find another solution other than bang, bang, you're dead? That's one way to not have an argument is the other person didn't show up because we shot him. So, I mean, with all due respect, that method has run its course. Amen. And so we are hoping that Earth finally goes towards what Isaiah has prophesied, that we beat our swords into plowshares. Well, it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. Another ISIS attack. Trump vows a serious retaliation after 2 U.S. soldiers and an interpreter were killed in a horror ambush by ISIS gunmen in Syria. So despite efforts to sort of chill relations with Syria, right? There were efforts. You remember, of course, not too long ago, the new Syrian president was invited to the White House. And so the hope was to cool things down in Syria for the U.S. forces. And unfortunately, that did not happen. U.S.-led forces were conducting counterterrorism operations against the Islamic State in the northeast of the country when the terrorists opened fire. And there's currently about 1,000 troops in Syria as of June, according to the reports. And so the ambush also left 3 U.S. service members injured, and the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, which oversees the American military in the Middle East, said 2 U.S. service members and 1 U.S. civilian were killed, and 3 service members were injured as a result of an ambush by a lone ISIS gunman in Syria. So again, someone could have paid that one person to cause the havoc, but nevertheless, this is where we are. And it's a very sad reality because young men are put in harm's way and for no real good reason. And so, again, just terrible, terrible sadness when lives are lost and seemingly just useless loss of life. And very, very sad. And, of course, President Trump is very upset about it. And the reports are that he is vowing a very stiff retaliation. He was reportedly furious, according to some reports, and said, "We will retaliate after 3 great American patriots were killed in a horror ISIS gun ambush." And so he has vowed to retaliate. And in a post in his Truth Social just hours after the shooter attacked the U.S. and Syrian convoy, Trump said, "We mourn the loss of the 3 great American patriots in Syria, 2 soldiers and 1 civilian interpreter. And likewise, we pray for the 3 injured soldiers." And of course, he went on and said that he was, they were planning full retaliation. And so, folks, we're going to continue to see more conflict in the Middle East, and especially if the United States continues to express itself in its military this way, putting itself on full display, it's provocation. And that provocation is no longer as intimidating as it once was. And so I think you're likely to see more attacks in the days to come. So we probably should steady ourselves for that potential reality. I'm not wishing it, but it looks to me like that is likely to occur. What also is looking likely to continue to happen is we're continuing to see more and more degradation of society as people lose their minds, their ever-loving minds, as we used to say. They have lost their ever-loving mind. And now we're seeing again more horrific gun attacks and terror attacks that have just stoked up. And so the death toll on this Bondi Beach terror attack and a homemade bomb was uncovered by cops. 2 gunmen opened fire on innocent beachgoers during a Jewish festival And this, of course, is a terrible tragedy that we're seeing unfold. And these are things happening around the world. Of course, this was in Sydney, Australia, but nevertheless, the point is, it is happening, and it is happening in a way that even though you are far away, we are feeling it. We are feeling it. And it's very sad. And my heart goes out to those that are being affected by these kinds of events, whether you're near or far. Our hearts go out to those that cannot gather safely or in peace because they're under threat of just armed conflict. And again, you don't win an argument that way. You don't win a theological argument that way, a religious argument that way. What sense this makes, I do not know. I do not know. But I do know this, that we are walking toward an hour of great judgment. And I think that some of these stories are telling us that things are degrading quickly in society. One of the things that I saw phenomenal evidence of, this was years ago, we saw this evidence coming out, and then we didn't see much more. And then all of a sudden, here we go, folks. And now we're seeing again, the sinkholes are returning. And this was a huge story coming out of Turkey. The sinkholes in Turkey, an ominous warning to humanity, as nearly 700 sinkholes. So what's a sinkhole? Well, that's when the earth opens up, man, and swallows, okay? And a lot of times they never find the body. They never find a person. This happened to a guy in Florida. If you remember, he was sleeping in his bedroom. And all of a sudden, the earth just opened up and he swallowed him. And they never found his body, nothing. The earth opened up and he died that day, okay? So this is starting to happen. Giant sinkholes, hundreds of feet deep, have been opening up throughout Turkey, mirroring a biblical prophecy. The book of Numbers, chapter 6, describes the earth opening up and swallowing people as divine punishment for rebellion, connection that some are drawing after the massive collapse in the Konya plain in the wheat-growing region of Turkey. So very, very scary stuff, and not a joke, folks. This is a very serious thing. Only a handful before 2000 of sinkholes appeared, and we've suddenly seen a dramatic increase again over the last 25 years. So again, this just confirms something I just said, that we saw this suddenly start to happen. And these are not small holes. Look at this. These are two people standing on the edge of a sinkhole. Look at the size of this thing. So this is not something you just climb out of and go, oops, we fell down a little bump. No, these are massive, massive holes that when they open up, you don't come out of them. You do not come out. If you fall in there, you're not coming out. Not without a lot of help. So very, very big deal. And I think that is indicative. What do you guys think? I mean, do you think that portends judgment? I do. I believe it is a warning sign for those with eyes to see and ears to hear that judgment is coming for those who continue to mock. And this, again, is cyclical. So somebody says, well, I thought this was, it's cyclical. It happens repeatedly in Earth's history. So if you think judgment is only once, you're wrong. There's constant judgments that come to correct, and that is just the Earth itself doing it. The Earth has a self-correction system. Yes, it does. The Earth will swallow up its inhabitants. Oh, don't think it won't. It will. Okay. And there's a lot of things that are helping this, and this is because of the wickedness that's going on the earth. And how many know that there's a lot of wicked things that you got to be careful not to be a part of? And so you can be easily suckered into some of these groups. You guys got to be careful what you join. And so the FBI is investigating more than 350 different, or these groups, these online 764 networks, coercing children into self-harm, sexual exploitation, violence to online platforms. This is why protecting children from online access and preventing them from having wildly unsupervised access is such a good idea. You got to protect these children from this. Even adults fall into these things, okay? The FBI has launched a probe into violent online networks known as 764, with the Bureau investigating more than 350 subjects, Fox News has learned. And they describe 764 in a statement as being a loosely organized online network that coerces minors and other vulnerable individuals into acts of violence, self-harm, and sexual exploitation. So, guys, if you have children, especially under 18, giving them unrestricted access to the internet can be deadly. Deadly. So this is not just a parental suggestion. This is highly dangerous activity. And so be aware of that and know that you do have enemies, guys. You have enemies. Now that you're aware, you can step away. It's that if you don't know there's alligators in the water, you'll walk right by it. If you know there's alligators, well, then you walk a little different. So be aware of the alligators. Like Mashiach said, wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Okay? Watch this, guys. Because they're going to even use the robots. And again, there's some that are bent on war. Remember, they make money on war. So realize that robots could groom children and trigger war with humans, from riding displaced workers to hack social care machines. Europol sketches risks that come from automation. And there are risks because, again, people are not adjusting to a new digital world fast enough. They are still stuck in an analog thinking process. They were raised that way. They have generations of it. And as a result, there may be an angry response to the shift. Angry mobs of unemployed citizens riot in the streets against the hordes of service bots that have stolen their jobs. Police officers armed with robot freezer guns and NATO net grenades shoot down swarms of drones deployed by terrorists to attack electricity and water supplies. This is not the plot of a new sci-fi film, but the way Europe in the next 10 years, according to a report from the EU police agency, is preparing. They are preparing for this kind of assault. Experts have dismissed the predictions as fanciful, but the EU believes its report outlines a plausible future scenario. And so the Europol researchers describe a society where robots are a fixture of daily life across Europe, gliding silently through the shopping centers and delivering parcels to fifth floor flats and just doing all kinds of jobs without being noticed. And I think that they are right. I think that if they can figure out how to put that robot force to work, complain all they want, people will be happy that someone is delivering their package. The end. And so I think that we are about to look at a different world where we are going to see increased robotics, increased intelligent use of machinery. And while some people are going to see that as a threat and say, "Oh, they're stealing my job," and maybe that is true. Maybe they are stealing some jobs. I would suggest that there's a lot of jobs that probably could be done better by machines and equipment than being done by humans. So which allow humans to do jobs that require a human, that are of that level, if you will. So it's almost like, if you think of it that way, humanity getting an upgrade. Like, hey, why don't we send that to mow the lawn while you take care of the children? Okay, instead of you doing the lawn and it taking care of the children, right? So I don't think I want the robot taking it. How about the robot paint the front deck, and how about that wash the car, and I'll play with the kids, right? I'll be the video game. How about that? So that's what we need now more than ever. So let's be careful out there with some of the things we endorse, and some of the things that are happening right now are changing quickly. And we need to look at the intelligent. Look at this report. This I thought was very interesting because of the way they framed the title. They said the world's smartest man. We don't know how they determined this was the world's smartest man, but nevertheless, the world's smartest man says Bitcoin will replace the dollar next year. Is he wrong? And how high would one BTC need to go in order to do that? Well, Young Kum Kim, who calls himself, okay, so now we know how this wonderful title was bestowed. This wonderful title of the world's smartest man was self-bestowed. And so therefore, it must be true. And he claims Bitcoin could replace the US dollar as early as 2026. And economists widely reject the idea as implausible because they only see Bitcoin in one way. They are about to find out that it is going to be dramatically reduced in cost and operation. I did not stutter. They are about to find out there's new technology on the horizon that reduces the cost of the operation of Bitcoin by as much as 95%. You heard it here first. Yep. You'll be hearing more about it right here at the weekly news update. But I'm going to tell you right now that technology is real. And the fact is that there's a massive shift going on in all the digital spaces. And so there's a lot of unpredictability that is starting to impact all of that space right now. So Is it going to be easy to predict what's going to be happening in the future? Not really, because I don't know that we can predict what forces will go to war, if you will, to defend their particular technology. I think you're going to see tech wars. I think you're already seeing somewhat tech wars because they've invested too much money in their tech, and even though it may be inferior, they may still want to defend it. So here we go. Here we go. We are seeing, by the way, speaking of war, we continue to see these warnings, and there's an ominous fleet of Iranian-linked tankers off the U.S. coast, which sparks alarm about the Trump's widening war with Venezuela. And so this is one of the reasons why we were concerned about what tankers were being grabbed, because there's a menacing shadow fleet of Iranian-linked tanker ships that are operating in the Caribbean, and they're sparking alarm amid ongoing U.S. military action in the region. So is this tied to the stopping of the Venezuelan ship? I can't imagine it isn't. So I think we're about to see more and more interdictions and more interventions in the Caribbean theater of operations, and I think it's going to get dicey, everybody. So if you thought it was going to get quiet, it isn't likely to get quiet. And if you thought that people stealing copper wires, how many of you have heard about people like getting electrocuted, stealing copper wire, and I mean stealing everything copper, right? Because if you didn't know this, copper is actually a rare earth mineral or a rare metal, and is in high demand. And so they find copper anywhere, man, they come and get it. Well, that's about to get even worse. So if it was bad before, it's going to get really bad now, right? So if they were stealing copper before, oof, boy, you better batten down your copper now, because it's going to hit stratospheric new highs as hoarding of the metal in U.S. continues. So copper prices have been hitting record highs. Industry experts say the latest lag of the rally has been turbocharged by tariff concerns, and it's been basically a big deal right now. This is under a paywall, folks, but just so you know, this is continuing to be a battle of infrastructure supplies, the basics for building, the basics for mechanical construction, a lot of things that are common to manufacturing. This is one of the reasons why China and negotiating with China was so important, because they basically control rare earth minerals. And so, no, threatening China with war is not a good direction. That's not a right direction to go. That's not going to likely work. Better direction is to come up with ways to work together. Hopefully, they come up with intelligent plans that modify their thinking rather than continue down these foolhardy methodologies. The 1930s call, they want their methods back. Hey, did you guys hear about the Bermuda Triangle? Now, I guess know about the Bermuda Triangle, right? So like planes go, for those of you that are new here, new to Earth, did you not know about the Bermuda Triangle? Well, there's a triangle of between Bermuda, San Juan, and I forget the third spot. And planes disappear. All kinds of crazy things have happened in the Bermuda Triangle. Right? Well, now they have found something even wilder. It's getting wilder. It's getting crazy over here. Really, really wild. So forget the Bermuda Triangle. Scientists are baffled by a giant structure hidden beneath Bermuda that is unlike anything else on Earth. How many are like going, what are we going to learn next? Right? Oh, my goodness. The Bermuda Triangle might be one of the world's greatest mysteries, but scientists have just discovered something even more baffling in the area. Researchers have spotted an enormous stone structure hidden beneath Bermuda that's unlike anything else on Earth. And so they're looking closely at it. No structure this thick has ever been found before, according to the team, who say it could help to answer one of the biggest questions about the famous island. And Bermuda sits on a raised area of ocean crust known as the oceanic swell, which lifts it above the surrounding area. And these formations are typically associated with volcanic activity, but there is no evidence to show that a volcano is to blame or for the Bermuda Triangle strange geology. So very, very odd things. And so they've discovered a vast rock structure beneath Bermuda, pictured, that is unlike anything on Earth. So I just think that's fascinating. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but anything that's like uncovering the real earth and the real things that are happening, I love that. I love the actual um historic or geological record, if you will, that's hit, or the historic record that's hidden in the geology rather than the history books. The books lie, the rocks don't lie. The rocks tell the truth, right, guys? The buildings that we go, we didn't build that, they tell the truth. The books lie. But man, those buildings, they tell the truth. They're like, hey, this would have required this kind of equipment. This would have required this many donkeys incorporated to get this done. This didn't happen. So somebody else built this with technology that they're not telling you about. And that is fun to dig into. So I don't know about you, but I enjoy that. And so hopefully that becomes something that we get more stories on. Speaking of more stories on, something we're seeing more and more of is more Muslim candidates are taking office as what they're calling the Mandani effect is taking hold. And I think that is something that we did point out in one of our other broadcasts is of concern. And I know that there has a major pushback going on in the U.S. Senate. They're talking about a bill. I'm not sure if they passed it. That was anti-Sharia. And I think that it is wise to be careful with immigrant groups who want to turn the United States into basically a enclave of a country that they came from. This is nothing new to the United States. We've been dealing with this melting pot issue since its inception. So by simply saying, I'm sorry, we will not turn ourselves into little whatever you used to be, usually that ends it and we move on. So hopefully that is what we will see happening here as well, because I don't believe we want to all turn into little wherever they're from. So America is unique in this regard, and that I think is the way it will remain. The good news is that these things have been tried before, and they usually fizzle. Because again, America has a way of whittling away all of that and turning people into a homogenous blob of they don't really belong to anything. So there is that. It is a stripping society. It's an identity stripping society. You will struggle holding your identity in a society like this because it's literally meant to make you homogenous until they want you to become something that they want to put a T-shirt on and sell you some merch. Then that's different. But there it is. Hey, did you guys know that Nicaragua is banning Bibles? I didn't know that. Nicaragua is banning tourists from bringing Bibles into the country. What? I found that to be really surprising. So tourists entering Nicaragua apparently are no longer allowed to carry their Bibles. The restriction, which also applied to other printed materials and electronic equipment, is part of a growing list of prohibited items in the border and comes amid tightening limits on civil liberties and ongoing crackdown on Christians. And so notice is displayed at Tica bus terminals in Costa Rica. And of course, listing Bibles, newspapers, magazines, books, drones, and camera, along with banned items alongside sharp objects, perishable food, and according to the UK-based group Christian Solidarity Worldwide. So did you guys know that you're starting to see Bibles being banned? And I wonder if that isn't because. So one of the things that I wonder about is that in the truther movement, right? As we wake up to things, right? We get awake to some truth, whatever it may be, its name or feasts or what. Just pick a topic, and we become dogmatic about it to the point where it offends or irritates and makes irate people. Well, we see right in the scripture that the apostles, when they went to certain places, did cause, in fact, massive disruption. You saw, remember, in Ephesus, where all the Ephesians came out and kept shouting, great is Diana of the Ephesians, great is Diana of the Ephesians, and was like, had the entire city in an uproar. Okay. So there is historical precedent, plenty of it, for there being a violent reaction to truth coming in where there's been lies. So whenever the truth is coming in on something and saying, I'm sorry, but here's the reality. A violent reaction is not unusual. So it actually makes some sense in that sense that they would want to prevent societally reactions occurring. I want your thoughts on that, but that's about the only logic I could think of for this, was that they were saying, we're seeing too much conflict. I certainly know that that's one of China's motivations. And it was a motivation in Europe as well, which is why you had the King James Bible, and then they made it the authorized King James so that they could quell the debating and fighting that had become so common in Europe and the Americas. And also why I believe in the East, there was great persecution against Christians during that same time period, for that very same reason, because again, the disruption to society that would ensue. So one of the challenges that Mashiach warned us about is to know how to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, to not cast pearls before swine, because what would happen is they would turn, trample the pearls, and rend you, or have a societal revolt. So this means we didn't listen. We didn't hear Mashiach when he said, don't do that. Don't get them that upset. Don't do that. Okay. Be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. But even he upset them to the point where they wanted to kill him 11 times. He had to escape death before finally the cross, right? So we know that we who speak any truth, any of you who speak the truth in any area, any category, doesn't matter what it is, you're going to offend people and upset them. So be careful with that. Know that that is like lighting a fuse. And, folks can overreact. I've watched people get, violently angry over something childish and silly, but they got upset about it. So be careful out there with that. Be careful with the way you rip a Band-Aid off. Okay. So, be careful with the way that works, because this is a very dangerous time in the earth right now. And we're noticing one of the things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago was that I think it was Switzerland? It was one of the European countries, but now Australia is also talking, and other countries are talking about. Actually, it was Australia that did this, and they banned social media under a certain age. How many of you agree with that? How many of you think that might not be a bad idea? Okay, social media under a certain age, don't even expose them to it. Don't even allow them, right? You have to be like alcohol. You have to be a certain age to drink. Well, you have to be a certain age to, do this stuff. Might not actually be a bad idea. I don't know. What do you guys think? I really am curious to know your thoughts. So please share your thoughts. But will other countries follow Australia's social media ban for under 16s? And several European nations are already planning similar moves, while Britain is saying nothing's off the table. So now they're really talking about it. Why? Because what they're realizing is they're losing young people. They're losing entire societies. Australia is taking powerful tech companies with its under 60s, taking on the powerful tech companies. And basically, they're daring the rest of the world. The country's enactment of the policy is being watched closely by politicians and safety campaigners and parents. And a number of other countries are not far behind. Europe is in particularly hoping to replicate Australia, while the UK is keeping more of a watchful interest. And I think that they've listened to the actual founders of this technology, because the co-partner of Facebook, for example, who was partners with the Zuck, he's been quite vocal about the fact that they went well beyond what they had intended, and that now has become a detriment to society. And so now we've got a Pavlovian situation where we've retrained people with dings and buzzes that are very unhealthy. And so we need to decontaminate from social media. How many of you felt like in the last few years that you had to decontaminate? I have disconnected a great amount from social media. I'm very rarely on. I used to be on a lot more. And boy, I got to tell you, my productivity level went way up. But I just don't have time. But also I realized how much stress and how much of other people's other people's lives, other people's business you get yourself caught up in that you have no business in. So it's a whole lot of mind your own business. I think is really good wisdom in this hour. So I certainly want to encourage parents who are saying, hey, kids, why don't we do something else with our time than social media, which tends to create dead zones. I think it's creating dead zones in people's heads. I really do. I'd love your thoughts, guys, because we're not in a bubble. We're always thinking about what your thoughts are, what we are facing as a group together. And so it is important that we understand that. And finally, we can't get around this topic of AI, guys. You can't go away from it. Pretending in a way is not going to work. And even now, if you're not able to interact with this kind of technology, and again, it's just technology, you're going to continue to fall behind. Your children are going to fall behind. This world isn't going to go back to an analog world. It just isn't going to happen. So we don't have to like it. We just have to adjust. Godmother of AI says degrees are less important because the old world's gone in hiring than how quickly you can superpower yourself with new tools. And this is reality. And so this is what we've got to teach our young people. Just like learning how to build with electric tools versus manual tools, that happened. Yes, it did. 70s and 80s. Builders had to transition to electric tools. Same thing. You got to transition. Founders of AI startups in Silicon Valley are valuing degrees less than seeking out candidates who can work quickly, adapt, and build AI models. And so this is good news for those kids that are not going to college but are very gifted. And so what you're going to see is more and more companies are now attracting them. When we interview a software engineer, I personally feel the degree that they have matters less to us now. And of course, I think that's going to continue as a trend. I think you're going to see more and more pushback against schooling as the predicate for success in the digital field because of how fast the field is moving. It is not possible to get a curriculum built, established, get a teacher in it, and get it established well enough before the material is already old. So this is proclivative to having a solid schooling system. You're learning too quickly. It's too on the ground, and it's too much happening too fast. And so I happen to agree. I think that it's going to be very hard for schools to compete. I think that's putting them basically out of business. And I think the student loan debacle that we've all watched over the last, say, 10 years, that it's just been constantly in the news conversation, and we all learned just how bad that rope is when they put it on you. So how many people went, oh my, that isn't something I want to do. So there's a whole lot of young people that opted out of going down that road, and I think for good reason. What's your thoughts, folks? Do you think that we should be seeing more and more of that in these days, where more and more folks are opting away from college and maybe going straight into trades? Well, even high tech trades are turning towards that now. So that's kind of interesting for us to note. And another thing that I thought was really interesting, something that is indicative of the signs of the times, last story we're going to cover before calling it for tonight. They did axe the penny. You remember that, guys? Well, now they're coming for another change to the way your money is managed. The American paper check may be quietly headed for distinction. Since the end of September, most federal benefit payments, including Social Security, have not been sent by paper check as a part of a push to fully modernize government payments, and that usually leads the way for the civilian population. So we should expect to see checks start to disappear. Last Thursday, the Fed revealed it's considering winding down the check services it provides to banks, and the notice posted quietly on its website. And of course, this is signaling a possible long-term retreat from paper-based systems. So we are seeing a major shift going on in our world to digital, folks, and there's no way to get you're not turning this back the other way. So what do we do in the meantime? What do? We get wise. We recognize, we realize what's going on. We get in front of it and we start to master it. That's what you do. Because if you run from it, you'll have to master it later. Only then you'll be much lower on that pecking order, if you know what I mean. So this is a good moment to get wise. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray this broadcast has been a berakatsu. Thank you again for those of you that waited for me. We had a slight technical delay today, but we got it done. And so always thankful to every one of you who share these broadcasts, who encourage others, and remember that our redemption draws nigh. Thank you again for joining us. Shalom, everyone.